I totally forgot how much of a narcissist Lockhart is. Like, this isn't just someone who has pride in himself. No, this person is a full-on narcissist. Like, this test that he has to see if anyone has read his books, they're all about him. They're nothing about the dark arts or defense against the dark arts. So yeah, I totally forgot how narcissistic he is.
Hey everyone, so I am in chapter 11, and Colin Creevey has just been petrified, and everyone's finding out about it. Somewhat of a red flag has come up, and that is people, it says here, it says, meanwhile, hidden from the teachers, a roaring trade in talismans, amulets, and other protective devices was sweeping the school. That is very new agey witchcraft, so I will say that part I don't like at all. And along with this, it said Neville Longbottom bought a large evil-smelling green onion, a pointed purple crystal, and a rotting newt tail before the other Gryffindor boys pointed out that he was in no danger. He was a pureblood, therefore unlikely to be attacked. And so yeah, right now fear is just controlling a lot of people, but they are buying talismans and amulets. That right there doesn't quite sit well with me. So that's, I would say, my red flag for this book right now.
Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to the Harry Potter vlogs. This is the second vlog because I just finished the second book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I ended up not liking this one as much as I did the first one. I don't really know why. Just trying to get into the story in general took me quite a bit versus the first one and the third one, because I have started the third one and I'm getting into the third one pretty good. But for some reason, it's still good. It didn't have that hook like the first one did and like the third one has. This one, if I had to rate it, it would be a 3.5 versus the others. I do have my notes here, so we are going to get into some things, but let's start with the non-spoiler, just in case if you want to read this and you haven't, I don't want to spoil anything for you, so let's get out the non-spoilery thoughts. Besides it taking a minute to get into, I will say Ron and Harry really show why they were never going to be picked for Ravenclaw in this book. There's quite a few times you're like, yeah, you're definitely not fit for Ravenclaw. Also has like one of the most narcissistic characters I've ever read. We will go in depth on the narcissistic character and the characteristics he hits, because if you don't know, in order to be clinically diagnosed, there are 9 traits of narcissistic behavior, and you have to hit at least 5 or more of these traits in order to be clinically diagnosed a narcissist. Hey, Harry is really amazing in this one though, because he really once again starts showing how he views everyone, and it's not just, I can't just say people because there's other creatures like the house elves. Harry treats the house elves that he meets as an equal, which in the wizarding world most people wouldn't do that, because house elves are viewed as servants, and the house elf you meet in this, he's pretty much treated like vermin, and he is a slave. he has to serve the wizarding family he serves until the day he dies, unless they give him a piece of clothing, which then sets him free of that house elf. He does try to help Harry out in this book, but he does more harm than he does good, and we'll talk more on that in the spoiler section. The things I'm not quite a fan of that also hurt the rating would be, there is a chapter called the Death Day Party, and what that is one of the ghosts celebrates the day of his death, and that is just I don't like celebrating death, so that just didn't sit well with me. And then there's another part in this book where there's something that's happening in this book that fear is taking over Hogwarts, and with that fear there's also like a lot of superstition and everything, and people are selling talismans, amulets, crystals. That is a bit new agey for me, and I did not like that. So I will say there was my red flag. I'm pretty sure you guys saw when I came across it, and I was like, I don't like that, because I'm pretty sure I did film when I got to that part, and I was like, I need to voice this now or else I might forget. But other than that, that kind of covers everything on the non-spoiler side. Alright. Well, awesome that you guys sticked around for the spoilers. Either you have read the books or you don't ever plan on reading the books and you just want the spoilers. So the house elf I mentioned is none other than Dobby. Dobby is just the cutest little thing ever, but the thing with Dobby is that he does so much more harm than he does good, and while it isn't with good intentions, he just does bad things. One of the things that I would say that he did that did more harm than good was the bludger. When he has a rogue bludger go after Harry, while he was just meaning to just hurt Harry enough to send him home, he could have still hurt Harry bad enough that it could have been worse, way worse. The first thing he does to try and stop Harry from going back to Hogwarts is he releases a charm and kind of destroys an evening at the Dursleys, and Harry gets a warning for underage magic, in that if he was ever to do anything like that again, he would be expelled. That wasn't all that harmful. But the next one, like the next deal he does is not as harmful as the bludger. I think the bludger is really the most harmful now that I think about it, but he does close the barrier between 9 3/4, so Harry cannot get onto the train. And this is where Ron and Harry really show that they are not Ravenclaws, because instead of thinking, oh hey, we can wait for Mr. and Mrs. Weasley to apparate back at the car, or because they would have had to figure out something went wrong. There's a reason why the boys are not there to get on the train. They would have apparated and found them at the car or something. Harry does have Hedwig, an owl, and he could have wrote a letter and sent it to Hogwarts saying, hey, we tried to get on the train, but the barrier ended up closing up and we were not able to get on the train, therefore we're gonna be late. They could have done something like that, but it goes to show that they are not Ravenclaws, because instead of doing those two very smart things, they decide they're gonna steal the Weasley's car, which Mr. Weasley has bewitched to fly. And they get in a lot of trouble. We're going to go over themes. This one doesn't have as much of a sacrifice theme as the first book. There is the act of being brave still and standing up to your enemies, very much so. As I was saying, you do still get the theme of facing your enemies and being brave, with Harry and Ron going, and especially the bravery is following spiders into a dark forest, definitely, but going and facing the Chamber of Secrets. The other theme besides facing your enemies, I would say, that is in this is definitely the prejudice. That is a little bit in the first one, but in this one, I think it's one of the major themes of all. And we get that first bit, of course, with the Dursleys, first and foremost. Their prejudice against Harry, and Harry being a wizard. Then you get it from the Malfoys, because you do meet Draco's father in this one, who I don't think they will ever get a better person to play Draco's father, because Jason Isaacs was amazing. But you first get it when they are in Diagon Alley and they see Hermione's parents with and Hermione with the Weasleys, and Malfoy kind of sneers at that, as well as he sneers at what Mr. Weasley does, which he, in the Ministry, he has, I forget the actual title, but it's Muggle Protection something, where he protects Muggles from enchanted items that have unfortunately fallen into their possession, stuff like that. Of course, they always look down at the Weasleys because they view them, even though they are a pure blood family, they still look down on them because they're poor. So it's not just prejudice against those who they deem not to be pure blood, but those they deem to be poor as well. Then, of course, with Draco, we get the nasty term mudblood, which that's pretty self-explanatory on what kind of insult that is, but it is an insult for anyone who is of non-magic family, like Hermione. Hermione is what is called Muggle-born, and Draco and his family, and basically the Slytherins themselves, are looking down on people like that, and they call them mudbloods. And you can definitely tell it's not just Draco, but it is a Slytherin theme in general, because when Ron and Harry are disguised as Crabbe and Goyle, when they do Polyjuice Potion and they go to the Slytherin house, their password is pureblood, which is horrendous. But then you get the backstory of Salazar Slytherin, one of the founders of Hogwarts, who clashed with the other three founders, especially Godric Gryffindor, because he didn't want to accept those he deemed unfit for the wizarding school, which is that those who are Muggle-born, and maybe even like half witch, or the parent is like half witch, wizard, and then the other parent is Muggle. They don't really talk much about the halves, but it's definitely more focus on the Muggle-borns. Then we get the Chamber of Secrets and what it holds, and that is a creature which is called a basilisk. Read something in there here in a minute about it, but the creature is set upon by Slytherin's heir to rid the school of those they deem to not fit, which is those of Muggleborns. The first time the Chamber of Secrets was ever opened, a Muggle-born girl was killed, unfortunately. But then in the new recent attacks that you read through, those who cross the basilisk are petrified because they never look it straight on. So out of the Harry Potter, a basilisk is of the most fearsome beasts and monsters that roam our land. There is none more curious or more deadly than the basilisk. Known also as king of serpents, the snake, which may reach gigantic size and live many hundreds of years, is born from a chicken's egg hatched beneath a toad. That's just the weirdest thing ever. And I did Google it. That's exactly what it says it's supposed to be. Its method of killing are most wondrous. From aside its deadly and venomous fangs, the basilisk has a murderous stare, and all who are fixed with the beam of its eye shall suffer instant death. Spiders flee before the basilisk, for it is their mortal enemy, and the basilisk flees from the crowing of a rooster, which is fatal to it. I didn't really look up any symbolisms quite yet with the basilisk and the spiders or the rooster, just because I do want to save that more for my symbolism video. I'm sure there's some symbolism in there, knowing J.K. Rowling, but that it being the king of serpents and being the deadliest kind of flashes back to the Garden of Eden, and when Satan disguised himself as a serpent to trick Eve into eating the forbidden fruit. We definitely get that snake persona. The one thing I kind of want to point out a little bit in this one is how similar Harry is to Voldemort, who in this book we find out that his original name is Tom Marvolo, I think is how you pronounce it, Marvolo Riddle. Him and Harry have quite a lot of similarities, and he even lists those similarities in here. And this is page 317. It's when Riddle and Harry are actually face to face in the chamber, and Riddle's trying to figure out how Harry defeated his future self. He goes, "So your mother died to save you. Yes, that's a powerful counter charm. I can see now. There's nothing special about you after all. I wondered, you see, because there are strange likenesses between us, Harry Potter. Even you must have noticed. Both half-bloods, orphans, raised by muggles, probably the only two Parselmouths to come to Hogwarts since the great Slytherin himself. Parselmouth is a person who can talk to snakes. We even look something alike, which they kind of do, because if you read Riddle's description, he has thick, dark black hair that is kind of over the place. But anyway, he says, but after all, it was merely a lucky chance that saved you from me. That's all I wanted to know. And then, of course, when we jump forward and Dumbledore and Harry are talking to each other, and throughout this, Harry starts having like an identity crisis. That's kind of another thing that is a theme in this, is Harry starts having an identity crisis because he starts seeing certain aspects in which him and Voldemort are very much alike, but not just Voldemort, but Salazar Slytherin himself, and people start questioning whether or not Harry is Slytherin's heir. And he constantly asks, was the Sorting Hat right? Would he have been better off in the Slytherin house than in Gryffindor's house. But Dumbledore, one of the first things I really like is that when Harry kind of is asking about whether or not he was put in the right house, Dumbledore goes, "You can speak Parseltongue, Harry," said Dumbledore calmly, "because Lord Voldemort, who's the last remaining descendant of Salazar Slytherin, can speak Parseltongue. Unless I am much mistaken, he transferred some of his own powers to you the night he gave you that scar. Nothing he intended to do, I'm sure." If you've read the whole series, that little bit that when you're reading this for the first time, it won't mean much to you because you're like, oh, okay, Voldemort put powers in him. Okay. But if you've read the whole story and you know what's at the end and you know what Harry has to do in order to defeat Voldemort, that right there is one of the biggest hellos out there. And it's like, oh wow, she hinted at that very early. But Harry goes, "Voldemort put a bit of himself in me. It certainly seems so. So I should be in Slytherin," Harry said, looking desperately into Dumbledore's face, because he does not want to be in Slytherin. Slytherin produces dark wizards, and he doesn't want to be in that house or associated with that house. So he goes, "The Sorting Hat could see Slytherin power in me," but Dumbledore stops him and goes, "Put you in Gryffindor. Listen to me, Harry. You happen to have many qualities Salazar Slytherin prized in his hand-picked students. His own very rare gift, Parseltongue, resourcefulness, determination, a certain disregard for rules. Yet the Sorting Hat placed you in Gryffindor. You know why that is?" And Harry goes, "Because he asked not to be in Slytherin." And Dumbledore replies, "Exactly, which makes you very different from Tom Riddle. It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities." Sitting here, looking at that quote from a Christian aspect is quite beautiful, because it is our choices. We don't have to choose death. We can choose life by giving ourselves to our Lord and Savior Jesus and putting our full trust into Him and accepting Him as our Lord and Savior. That's one of the biggest things ever. But that was one thing. If you look up themes for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, there's choice versus faith, fate versus identity. And yeah, you get a little bit of that in this with Harry and him trying to figure out, was he put in the right house, or was he supposed to be in Slytherin? Now let's move on to the more interesting part, and that is Gilderoy Lockhart. There's a reason I haven't mentioned him just quite yet until now, and that's because we are going over the 9 traits of being narcissistic. And oh my goodness, I will throw up a deal here that I have a screenshot of, which is all 9 traits and their descriptions, or you can Google it to see more of exactly what it means. The very first trait, and the one that Lockhart has the most of underneath this, that is the grandiose sense of self-importance. Yeah. If there's ever a sentence that describes Lockhart, it is that. The very first part we ever really see him exhibit this is when Harry is on his way to his first herbology class, and Gilderoy's there talking to Professor Sprout, which we will talk about that here in a minute. But he pulls Harry aside and doesn't really care that Harry's going to be late for class, which, again, we'll talk about that in a minute. But he pulls Harry aside and tells Harry that he didn't think that, because let's actually back up here for a minute. When Harry and Gilderoy Lockhart meet for the very first time, Gilderoy is doing a book signing in Flourish and Bots, and he sees Harry Potter. He brings Harry up to him so he can have a picture with Harry Potter, and they can be front page material. And from that, going back into this, he thinks Harry flew the car to Hogwarts because Harry wanted to make the front page and wanted all this fame and glory and kudos because he flew a magic car to Hogwarts. That's not why Harry did that, but that's what Lockhart thinks that Harry did. And that can be found on page 90. We have a new character, Colin Creevey, who I absolutely adore, him and his brother, and the ending of his story in book 7 really just sucks to all end. But Colin takes a lot of pictures. He takes pictures of everything, and he's found ways to actually develop it the way you do in the wizarding world, where it can move. But Colin's taking Harry's picture, and he goes, "Harry, when I get this developed, can you sign it?" And Lockhart comes over, and because he overheard the whole thing, and he goes, "Here, Colin, here's a double feature," and pulls Harry in for the picture, and they take a picture. They take a picture together, and yeah. Then Lockhart's like, "I saved you from this, Harry, because other people will look down on you." Here, he says, "A word of the wise, Harry. I covered up for you back there with young Creevey. If he was photographing me too, your schoolmates won't think you were setting yourself up so much." The thing is, Harry didn't want his picture taken, nor did he want to sign a picture to give out. And yeah, Lockhart's like, "Oh, I saved you because I overheard this little bit of a conversation and I know nothing about you, so I'm going in, I'm gonna jump in and save you." And anyway, go a couple pages into on page 100, he gives out his first test ever in his class, the Defense Against the Dark Arts, and the test is all about him because, and this is also another thing that I didn't think of, but when you look at all of their books that they're supposed to get for the school year, almost the whole book list is all of Gilderoy's books, which we'll talk about here in a minute, because that falls under another thing. But he wants to see how many people have read all of his books, so he tests them on the books. But the questions are ridiculous. Number 1, what is Gilderoy Lockhart's favorite color? Number 2, what is Gilderoy Lockhart's secret ambition? Number 3, what in your opinion is Gilderoy Lockhart's greatest achievement to date? And it keeps going on and on and on, and there's even, what is Gilderoy Lockhart's birthday and what would be his ideal gift? So that right there is just, If we go a little bit forward and we get to when Mrs. Norris, who is the cat of Filch, who is, I forget kind of what his job description is technically called, but basically the janitor of Hogwarts. It's really the best way to explain Filch. When his cat, Mrs. Norris, is attacked by the basilisk, and everyone's sitting there, and Lockhart says, "Oh, Dumbledore, you can use my office," and they all go in there. And when you get in there, his office is decorated with just pictures and pictures of himself. And then when Dumbledore is examining Mrs. Norris, he's sitting there going off on how he could have saved Mrs. Norris from dying, how he got rid of some banshee, I think it is. And he's just talking on and on while they're like sitting there trying to study, is the cat dead? Is what's happened to her? And then they talk about how she was just petrified, but they can produce a potion to unpetrify her once the mandrakes, which you learn about in the first herbology class, once they are fully mature. And then he goes on how he can create he can make the potion himself, and Snape's like, no, that's my job, I'm the potions master. Then we jump forward a little bit to his class after the first real big disaster class, but he's teaching the class, and what he's really doing is he's making Harry come up to the front of the class to enact what he has done in his books, to enact his great achievements in his books, instead of actually teaching kids how to defend themselves against dark arts. Then a couple pages in, he's telling Harry that he can give him some tips on Quidditch because he's such an important player when he used to play, and he almost played for this big team, yada yada yada. And you're just like, dude. Then of course the next time he shows this self-importance is when he creates the dueling club, and he is like, I'm going to teach you all how to duel so you know how to protect yourselves. And you're just sitting there like, dude, no. Dude, no. When there are a pause in the attacks of everything, he goes around and he's telling people how he's the reason the attacks have stopped. Nothing more, nothing less. It's because of him, and that it's because he is there at the school. And Lockhart's a mess. The second trait of being a narcissist, I don't think he really falls under, and that is preoccupation with fantasies. Once I read that, I was like, no, that he doesn't really fall under that one. To trait 3, belief in being special or unique. Personally, with how this one is, I think he singles out Harry a lot because Lockhart really wants to prove that he's better than Harry, because Harry is famous for something really big. And unfortunately, Lockhart can't steal Harry's glory, which we will come back to here in a minute. I think he's just trying to show that he's better than a 12-year-old boy. But in being special and unique, we can kind of look at the same things that is under the grandiose sense of self-importance. There's certain bits when you read this that, yeah, he kind of thinks himself very special. Or his need for excessive admirations. Obviously, he's constantly talking about his accomplishments and all of this, and he wants people to ooh and awe about him. Then even his test shows that he wants admiration. He wants people to know all about him, you know, reenacting his books in class and needing these people to just admire him and how he's so much better than other people. Trait number 5 is sense of entitlement. What I was going to say for it's just part of this, and that is having all of the Hogwarts students buy his books. in order to take his class, the Defense Against the Dark Arts. Like, that right there is just straight entitlement, instead of going off of other books that could actually help with Defense Against the Dark Arts. He makes everyone buy his books because they're much better. He has stolen other people's glory to sell books, to become famous. I would say that is a bit of entitlement, as well as something else that we're going to talk about here in a minute, because it is trait 6. But his entitlement, I would say, is that he wants everyone to buy his books, everyone to acknowledge that he is famous for these great things, even though technically he's not, but we don't know that just quite yet. Number 6, interpersonally exploitive behavior. Stealing people's glory, stealing what other witches and wizards had done in order to write books and make himself famous, which I have here. He says, Harry goes, "You mean you're running away? After all that stuff you did in your books?" Lockhart replies, "Books can be misleading. Harry, you wrote them." Lockhart's response, "My dear boy, do you use your common sense? My books wouldn't have sold half as well if people didn't think I'd done all those things. No one wants to read about some ugly old Armenian warlock, even if he did save a village from werewolves. He looked dreadful on the front cover. No dress sense at all. And the witch who banished the abandoned banshee had a hairy chin. I mean, come on." Really, do we need to explain Lockhart any more than just those words that came out of his mouth? Trait 7, lack of empathy. Yes. So the first part, when I said we were going to talk about it in a minute, which was Harry being late to herbology. He doesn't care that Harry is late and could miss out on some important details in herbology class. He pulls him aside anyway, doesn't care at all. Then, of course, you know, he doesn't care that he's stealing other people's achievements to sell in his books. When he tries to heal Harry from the bludger that broke his arm, and Harry's like, no, I will go to Madame Pomfrey. It'll be fine. He does not care to listen to Harry's feelings and just wants to show that, oh, he's better than anything else. He can heal the bones, and he ends up actually making all of Harry's bones disappear. He ignores Harry constantly when Harry's telling him he doesn't want fame or glory, and he just ignores Harry and kind of like self-projects like, oh yeah, you want fame. I know the type. Then when Mrs. Norris has been petrified, and Filch is having a hard time because he thinks she's dead at that point, and he's just going off and off about his achievements and how he could save Mrs. Norris if he was there from death and all this stuff, and he has like he can't read a room, obviously, and poor Filch is just crying because, you know, Mrs. Norris is his world. Next one is envy of others or belief that others are envious of them. He does think everyone else is envious of him. I definitely think that. But I think he's also envious of Harry, because Harry is the one person he cannot steal that glory. He cannot say, I defeated Lord Voldemort. I made him disappear. And I think that makes him quite envious of Harry, and why he's constantly zoning in on Harry and trying to show that he's better. Like I said earlier, he really wants to try and show that he's better than a 12-year-old boy. Then the final trait is arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitudes. Absolutely, he's very arrogant in that he thinks he's better than everybody else, and there's many times where he's going and telling people how to do their jobs. Like when we were talking about earlier with the herbology, he was telling Professor Sprout how to do her job, then he was telling Hagrid how to do his job, and was trying to tell, I think, Snape and McGonagall, if I remember correctly, how to do their jobs and how he's a little bit better than them. And yeah, it for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.